Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be the case of Anthony Ávalos. This is a gruesome case of this poor 10-year-old boy. This case was actually skimmed through the docuseries of Gabriel Fernandez. If you guys not have watched that docuseries on Netflix, if not, you guys can watch my brief scratch of the surface video that I posted. And in that docuseries on Netflix, they did skim through this particular case because it happened 15 minutes away. Now, for people that are not aware or don't live in California, or who are watching that don't live in the county of Antelope Valley, but the county of Los Angeles, I should say, but the valley of Antelope Valley, Palmdale and Lancaster are sister cities. They're right next to each other and they're 15 minutes away. So, it's just the fact that they even let Gabriel Fernandez slip through the cracks, and even after that whole ordeal, the case of Anthony Ávalos really, I think, it's pissing people off at that point. And we're gonna get into this case. There is gonna be graphic detail. I'm not gonna sugarcoat anything. There's gonna be graphic language, and sometimes you have to be raw and real and unfiltered in order to get the point across. There is no sugarcoating when it comes to any of these gruesome crimes. And in order for there to be change, the real story, the unsugarcoated story, has to be told in order for there to be change. Not just here in Los Angeles County, but in every county of all US. And if you're watching this from another country, there has to be a justice system for children who cannot speak for themselves, cannot defend themselves. These lives need to be, their lives have to mean something. They did not die for nothing. We have to make their lives an example of what should not ever happen. Their life shouldn't have even been taken. We cannot change that they're no longer with us, but we can change what happens in the future for future children in the same circumstances and scenarios as they are in, well, that they were in, I should say. I'm making this video. This video will not be monetized, so there will be cussing and graphic language and just graphic detail. But because this is not about anything, this is about awareness. Things that are swept under the rug do never change. The more noise we make as people, the more there has to be change. If we just don't talk about it, change will never happen. So this is why it's very important that if you see something or you really want to protest. If you can protest in a peaceful way, you can really talk about it, put it on your Instagram, share this video, just to get the information out there. If not, make your own video on your own thoughts. But these stories need to be heard because these children have no voice, and we have to be their voice. We have to be their light to beam through the shitstorm that we have in the protective system. It's the truth. So here we go. This case is of Anthony Ávalos. He was a 10-year-old boy. He was in 5th grade. His biological parents were Heather Barone and Victor Ávalos. His mom was 28 years old, and she has 9 children. So Anthony has 8 brothers and sisters, so he has 8 siblings. Anthony lives in Lancaster, California, in Los Angeles County. He attended the El Dorado Elementary School. And if you ever asked any of the teachers about him, his teachers would say how he was very well collective. He would really think about what he would say before he would say it. He was a very athletic kid. He was the fastest runner in his class. There was actually a letter that, it was quite a long letter and a very well written out letter that Anthony wrote to his teacher. And it was a very sweet letter. And if you guys Google it, you guys can see it. It's kind of on the longer side, but it's very sweet. And to think that a 10-year-old boy wrote that just goes to show you how well collected he would think about his thoughts and how he would write out his things and maybe the way he would speak. And it would take notice because his teachers definitely did. But after that, pretty much a background story of Anthony's parents. Anthony's parents were teenagers when they had Anthony, so they were very young themselves. Victor Ávalos left to Mexico in pretty much Anthony's very, very young life. They only ever knew each other through FaceTime. So Anthony's mother raised them working part-time at Subway and also collecting welfare checks for all her children. Pretty much when the DCFS call started was when Heather took Anthony at 4 years old to the clinic after he had claimed that a particular someone molested him. And that was when, ever since that first visit happened, that's when DCFS got involved with Anthony's life. This happened when he was 4. And pretty much that's when the child abuse calls started coming in. And after that, school teachers, counselors, police, relatives started making calls and reports, about anywhere from 13 to 16 reports that they can prove that were made. And Child Protective Services started from 2013 all the way through 2017. Anthony's biological mother, Heather Barone, had a boyfriend named Kareem Leva, which was 32 years old. So pretty much Anthony was never with his real dad. And he was pretty much around only his mom and her boyfriend, Kareem. So Kareem, by the way, he was, I think, 6'1" and 200 pounds. So you can kind of get a description of what he looks like there. But pretty much after that, the incident didn't look further into the claim with the whole molesting of Anthony. When DCFS approached Heather, Heather said that she would get him help. And pretty much DCFS just left it at that, and that Heather would not allow whoever was molesting Anthony near her family or Anthony himself. So pretty much they never checked up on him. They never saw if, she did or did not get him help. They don't even know if the perpetrator did or did not come into Anthony's life. And they do not say or release the name of who she claimed molested him. But when Anthony turned 6, his aunt, Crystal, told therapists that Anthony admitted to her that his mom would beat him, lock him in a room with no access to water or a restroom. And the therapist later called the hotline to report the incident because by law they have to. So that was an incident that one of his biological aunts left, his biological aunt's therapist left. I think she was confessing to them because I guess she just couldn't hold it. And from there, the therapist made that hotline call to report that. Even after that, DCFS workers interviewed him at school and later found out that his mother never got him help after the molesting incident. When he was 4, which would make it 2 years ago. So he was already 2 years past and they never even bothered to check since it was first reported. Also, Anthony was caught acting sexually inappropriate with another child. And these behaviors are not a rare occurrence for children who are sexually abused. So for, I guess, the DCFS workers, it wasn't something out of the norm. It's actually quite, I don't want to say normal, but sometimes it messes kids up in a certain way that is just hard to explain. And later, the brother of Heather, which would be Anthony's uncle, right? Biological uncle. His name is David, and his wife will be the ones calling DCFS on his own sister after the kids pleaded to them how Heather's boyfriend would beat Anthony and his siblings. Mind you, remember the boyfriend is named Kareem. Later, after that, the police reported, police made a report by David, and pretty much he would report to the hotline saying that the kids were pretty much being locked up in a room until they were urinated and defecated on themselves, slammed against the walls, dragged from ears until scabbed and bruised. They were always so hungry. They were hoarding food since they didn't know how long it would be until their next meal. David also lets the people on the hotline reporters know that Heather was suicidal, had proof of her slitting her wrist, saying that she wanted to die, and that her boyfriend was a part of gang MS-13, and he was afraid of what he would do next. Teachers would report that the boyfriend would make the children fight and that they were hungry and pretty much they were eating out of the trash, is what the teachers would claim once the kids would kind of feel confident enough to tell the teacher, and the teacher reported it, and they just kind of shoot it away. The DCFS workers went into Heather's home, and Heather just said that's not true, and they just left it at that. And because so many people were calling DCFS on her, her own family, her sister-in-law, her brother, the teachers, the counselors, and all this going on, pretty much Heather just hit a breaking point. Heather cuts off all contact with her brother, her sister-in-law, moves him to a whole completely different school so he can get complete different teachers. So that's what she did, and kind of the way she was going to get away from all of that. And this is the tragedy that happened. The final moments of Anthony was on June 18th. Heather said her son Anthony had confessed to her that he liked talking to boys, and her boyfriend overheard the conversation he had with his mother. Leva proceeded to drop Anthony multiple times on his head. After this is when they made a call to 911 on June 20th at 12:15 p.m. So on the 18th, they confessed, right? And then shortly after, he beat him. And what was said, and later on, they found out that he was dropping him in the head and just beating him. And he threw him on the bed. And the next day, they were trying to wake him up, and he wasn't waking up. And this was what, according to what the children, his siblings and the other children that were in the house were claiming, and that they were grabbing him by the armpit, lifting him up. Well, the boyfriend was, right? Mr. Kareem Leva was grabbing him by the armpit, lifting him up, and the kid said that he looked frozen. So I'm pretty sure that at this point he was pretty much dead. And that's what they claim, right? The children claim. But that's, I guess, what the children say that actually happened. When the police and the paramedics came, the story was that, that he fell on his head. But hospitals and nurses and doctors, they all saw that he was in a pretty much zombie condition, and he was pretty much dead. He was 4'6", 77 pounds, and he died on June 21st. And her other children were removed from the home. The abuse wasn't just with Anthony, but his siblings as well. They were all made to kneel down on dry ice and rice for hours until scabbed, and they would never heal. They were made to fight. Eating was a privilege. If they were locked in a room and one of them peed or defecated, they were pushed into their feces by the boyfriend Kareem. He would stuff shirts in their mouth to silence their screams. Later, after the interviews with the siblings and the coroner's office, he had blunt force trauma to his head. He had abrasions to his face, both knees. He had abrasions to both of his knees, bruises on his abdomen, hips, arms, buttocks. His back had sunken eyes, small circle burns, which would match up to the siblings' reports on how they would beat him. They would beat him with the belt, a vacuum cord, the vacuum hose. They would hit him with fists, chokeholds, hitting him with their feet, slapping him in the face, torturing him by kneeling, having him kneel on rice or drink hot sauce, slamming his head against the floor, locking him in the room for days with no water, no food, made to fight with his siblings, and have to hold heavy books, holding his arms up. And that's the way the children would say that Kareem Leiva, 6'1", 200 pounds, beating on a 10-year-old Anthony, okay? Siblings also said to the jury in the courtroom that they would make them all lean on rice until they stop crying, or make Anthony stand on the corner for hours. And that's really, really disturbing to know, that the fact that the denominator is the same in these two stories. A woman that is with a gang-affiliated lifestyle, is on welfare, and, you know, is beating up on all her kids. Like, it's really ridiculous at this point. And another thing that the DCFS director, Bobby Cagle, has said, no workers in the Anthony's case have been disciplined, and that's what really pissed people off. Heather would be the one to beat and whip their faces, legs, and belt with the belt, and he had him, and they would dangle him upside down from the staircase. Anthony's body showed great signs of torture and prolonged physical abuse, burns from head to toe. And what he ended up dying was blunt force trauma. So that is exactly how Gabriel Fernandez died, was through blunt force trauma. And later on, they were actually arrested on, let's see. They were actually arrested in July. They were arrested like a little after, once they did the autopsy, because they saw that he was in severe condition. And after that, that's when all the kids are now in a different home. They're now arrested. The mother and her boyfriend are charged with first-degree murder. And they're trying to get them to get the death penalty. This honestly is a really, really, really disgusting case. And the fact that it wasn't just one child, like in the Gabriel Fernandez's trial, where he was the black sheep of the family, that everyone else was treated normal and he was the one getting the beat down. In this particular case, all of them would get beat. All the children were severely tortured. And mostly the boys versus... The boys were, I guess, more disciplined than the girls. But the girls still, I mean, they didn't escape the torture by any means. But it's really sad to know that things like this, even how they didn't catch it. I mean, there was multiple reports, and yet none of the DCFS workers are going to be charged with absolutely anything, not even lose their job, it seems like, at this point. And it's really pissing people off that it's like, how many reports have to be made in order for a child to be removed, or children to be removed? It's a really disgusting case. And I actually know someone who had went to high school with her. And he said that she was really gangster, and that she liked that gangster lifestyle, and that all the men she liked were gangsters. And that really proves that is true, because her boyfriend was like this criminal, this MS-13 gang member. And it just adds up. And it's really sad and unfortunate that, you know, that she would even allow her boyfriend to beat him that way, and for herself to beat him that way. Apparently, I mean, she was suicidal. She should not have had that many children to begin with if she knew that she was unhappy, if she knew that, you know, she was suicidal, if she knew that she was angry and gonna take it out. Like, believe me, people, there's many routes that you can go in your life. And let me tell you, this is not the route you want to go. If you know someone that is very abusive that way, please make a report. The more light we shed to these cases, the more change that it's forced to make them change. Change doesn't happen with a closed mouth. Change happens by talking, making a buzz, making people angry. This should make you angry. This type of severity should make people fucking angry. This is not even... This is a fucking joke. And I'm fucking tired of seeing fucking cases upon cases. The next case that I'm going to talk about is actually a kid who died in Palmdale. Another kid. His name was Noah. 4 years old. That's my next case. And this case is so recent. Their parents haven't even gone on trial. At least these fucking pieces of shit are going in. They're already imprisoned for life. Because like I told you guys in the last video, you're not going to go into prison and expect not to get your ass beat. You're going to go to prison and you're going to pay. You're going to wish you were in solitary confinement, which, if you guys don't know, solitary confinement is already a torture within itself. No one even has to hit you, beat you. It's psychological torture where you don't see the sun. They would have wished that would have been a bliss to what they're going to get in prison. Don't get me started on what they already did to that other piece of shit, Fernandez, the mother, biological mother. And mother is a fucking stretch to say. The one who birthed the angel, Gabriel Fernandez, that piece of shit of a mother. I told you guys what happened to her ass. She's next. There's nothing in this life that you don't pay, whether it's in this life or the next. This here has to stop. This is happening in our own communities, and you guys fail to realize, or maybe you guys don't feel like you guys want to say something because you don't want to get involved. You don't have to get involved. Just call the police, see what car they're going, put the plate, and say, you know what, I saw a child and they got in this car and he looks so severely injured. The police, I need to make a report. That simple. And if it's someone that you know, insist. I want you to insist them to go and check. Do a wellness check. This has to stop. This has to absolutely stop. This here is bullshit. They interviewed him, and that's how they knew that his mom didn't get him help. And yet they just swept that under the fucking rug. Are you fucking kidding me? This shit like this should not happen. What's wrong with people? This is honestly, this is a fucking joke. Like, all the child protective workers and the people that were tasked to protect Anthony missed numerous warning signs and ultimately led to his death. Like, come on. If you're a fucking caseworker and you're watching this, what the fuck, man? If you guys know people who are caseworkers, what the fuck? I saw this other fucking dumbass clown on there saying, oh, you know what? one of the big problems is that there's not consistency and they're being overworked, then pay people. Pay it. The government and the fucking senators and all the fucking mayors are filthy fucking rich, and you're gonna tell me? You're gonna fucking tell me that here that the fucking roads are fucked up because I live in this fucking goddamn valley, and you're gonna tell me that they don't have no fucking money to pay this? To pay for them not to have dumb fucking people on these fucking cases? They should have consistency. They should have people that are not changing in and out, and they're just picking up old, brand new files that they've never even reviewed before. Because if it's, say, example, if it was me getting the same file, getting the same people telling me the same thing, you would think that I would be more willing to try to do something versus one day you get the case, the next day I get the case, and we're just gonna be like, oh, okay, it's nothing. And then that's why all these children are dying. All these children, imagine, Anthony unfortunately had to die, but he had 8 other siblings. How many other ones would have to die until they got the point? Anthony didn't even have to die. Gabriel didn't have to die. This here has to be an eye-opener. And it's like Anthony wasn't the only one being abused. There was things that I was reading that they would make them sit on rice and their bare feet were hanging out, and they would get hit with the belt on the palms of their feet. Like, what the fuck, man? And then they would be caught eating trash, like food out of the trash. They would hoard food. Those are all characteristics of a child who is in an endangered environment. They're in a high risk environment, and their case says high risk, and yet they don't give a fuck. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of sitting here and reading the same thing over and over again. And this is why I'm taking time out of my day. I work 2 jobs. I'm taking time out of my day to make sure it's nighttime. If you notice, every time I make these videos, it's nighttime when I come back from my second job, okay? I'm making sure that this has to be addressed. Now, I can't go over there and fight the caseworkers, right? But the more you make it known, the more the message gets sent to the right people that can actually do something. Why is it that only when the people get mad at something, they change something? Because a lot of people are aware of it, you guys. Do the right thing. If you see something, report something. So the next time something, God forbid, and I don't want this to ever happen, but this should be a lesson to the caseworkers. I want one of them to get convicted for negligence, for carelessness of a child's life. So that can be an example for everyone trying to be a caseworker just for the funsies of it. You have to have a heart. And I know there's protocols and there's a lot of programs that make caseworkers try not to rip a child out of their home because it causes a lot of trauma in a child's life. But in the end of the day, it's like when it comes to stuff like this, you would be doing the child a favor. There was times where, Heather's biological brother and Heather's sister-in-law would say that the kids didn't want to go home. So it's like, how fucked up is that? And it's sad that her own brother had to even do that to his sister because his sister's a fucking idiot. You know what I'm saying? Like, imagine being a brother, and you know that if you have a sibling, you love them to death, So it's like he had to be the one, and his wife had to be the one to have to turn on her because she just was doing way too much and ultimately led in Anthony Ávalos' death. He didn't deserve that. And she deserves everything that's coming to her in prison, you guys. Let me tell you, they do not fucking play around. There is women in there that can't even see their children. And then you get pieces of shit like Heather, pieces of shit like Pearl, that torture their kids, mistreat their kids, rape their kids, or whatever the case is, right? And they come in there, and then they, for whatever X, Y, and Z reason that they're in there and they can't see their children, they're trying to do everything to be able to do visitation with their children. And then here you come, the piece of shit that you are, and knowing that you did all these things to your kids, you think they're going to be happy with you? Girl, you have another thing coming. And for that piece of shit Kareem, in men's prison, they don't play that game either. So I'm glad that you guys are in prison now. And I'm just happy that no other lives had to be spared between all 9 of them. Yes, none of them should have died. But imagine if it would have just been marked as an accidental death and they would have believed what they said. How many more other times, how many other more of their kids would have died? Because it wasn't just like Gabriel Fernandez that there was abuse on one child. It was on all of them. There was torture inflicted on every single one of them. And there was 9 of them. It's a lot of children to be doing those kinds of gruesome crimes to. Really fucked up. This is to bring awareness, prayers to Anthony. Please make a prayer for Anthony, for Noah, for Gabriel, and for every other child that's maybe in a position similar to that. Seriously, man. It's intense. It really saddens me to the core, but awareness has to be brought. And the next time you guys see me, I'm going to be doing the case of Noah. And that one makes me really sad. And they haven't even convicted his biological mother and their boyfriend yet. So it's quite a hell of a story as well. I'm pissed off, man. Comment down below if you guys have questions. Give me a like for it to be circled around. Try to get the most views. The more views, the more people are aware of fucking heinous crimes like this. Fucking heinous fucking people. And bring awareness, man. Be aware of your surroundings. Look at a child. Give them a good look. You could save a life. Bye, guys.